Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. We are back on Earth today, out on the launch pad with this DN1 A? Yes. Anyway, we are going to try to get our Earth-Moon transit system back in order. So there is our ignition sequence start. This is our new Lunar Uber Mark II, which thanks to Wookheed Industries, has now been approved and passed all of its certifications. We just need to get it up to Tremonia Station and get it docked so that we can start ferrying crew to and from the surface again. So we are up and off the pad. Very significant liftoff thrust to weight ratio. I think we're at like what, 1.4, 1.6 off the pad, 1.6 current, 1.4 off the pad, 1.6 now, and already 100 meters per second. So I'm going to start leaning in a little bit to this gravity turn. The problem being is that our core stage will have an absolutely abysmal thrust to weight ratio after booster SEP. Maybe we should have expanded these boosters a little bit more. So we're probably going to be lobbing this thing. The flight plan is a little counterintuitive, but I guess we'll get to all that a little bit later. Anyway, I'm going to fly this to orbit, so yeah. And into the speddy uppy bits we go. Like I said, yeah, this is probably going to be a very lofty ascent profile. Booster SEP will be coming up here in a little less than a minute. I did throttle back, trying to preserve as much of our time with our glorious boosters as I could, to see if we couldn't get a whole bunch of speed under our belt, maybe burn a little more fuel out of that core stage. Currently its thrust to weight ratio at separation is going to be like not even 1.6 or so. So we'll lean in. There's booster SEP, and you know, what's a little nose cone tapping between friends, and then we'll start angling up. 0.58 currently our thrust to weight ratio. I think the DN1 needs a balancing pass, perhaps, although I think we are carrying a little more tonnage than it's actually able to handle. But we'll just kind of set our angle very carefully, watching our time to apoapsis. We're going to have to start angling up a whole lot more. Fairing SEP way later than it should have been, and there's our Lunar Uber Mark II, thanks to Wookheed Industries. Hopefully it's going to be a little simpler to operate, easier to dock, more well-balanced, and hopefully it won't have that crazy fatal error where some tanks just don't get recognized for whatever reason. Wookheed Industries went through the painstaking process of figuring out that you can attach a KAS/KIS attachment hose port thing to those container crates at the bottom, and then if you detach the crate, it should reset the part parenting, which hopefully will avoid the interesting bug that we came across before. So down to about 9 seconds or so in our time to apogee, relative inclination now back to about 0.25 or so. Oh, I should mention also, this Lunar Uber is completely connected living space compliant. It does only suit a crew of 4, but that's all Rosalina Memorial Station will really support in the first place, so it kind of works out better that way. Anyway, so about another 2 minutes of runtime on our core stage. Our thrust to weight ratio finally above 1. We're up to about 1.4 or so currently, so it can actually start leaning in, pointing almost prograde, although we do want to buy ourselves some time because we are going to fire up this RL-10 stage to round out our orbit and then use it to start our trip to the moon. So we need to buy it time for its abysmal thrust to weight ratio to have us not plummeting back to Earth, but we can dedicate our last 200 meters per second straight to speed. Core stage off and away, good light on all 5 RL-10s, as we're just going to kind of lean into this right away, let that time to apogee fall. We're going to go ahead and let ourselves fall straight back to Earth, because, you know, hey, why not? Well, I mean, not straight back to Earth, but we're going to descend a little bit because we got some room to breathe here. Apogee is 228 kilometers and climbing current speed 6.8-ish kilometers per second. So we're just going to go ahead and bring up the fuel tanks from our new Lunar Uber. now that you actually get to take a solid look at it, we'll use some of this RCS to help out a little bit sporadically. There is an AJ10 stage underneath it. That is kind of an assist method, or really just kind of an external fuel tank for the Disastrous engines that are bolted to the Lunar Uber2, which, by the way, we do have footage of its development over on the Wookheed official channel. I will leave a link to that down in the description below if you want to see some of the path that this craft took to its final form, and some of the testing that resulted in what hopefully is a solution for the reparenting of parts. There is our circularized orbit, and now we will start plotting for the moon. I got a little confused there by another incoming asteroid right around the moon. It is not the moon, but it took me a second to realize that it wasn't. Anyway, so we're also going to be targeting Tremonia Station just to make sure we get our inclination right. This would be coming in on the wrong side. We need to come in on this side. And of course, KSP, being as awesome as it can be, can't quite decide if we actually have a solid intercept or not. We're not going to be able to really fix that inclination here. We're going to have to make a mid-course correction on the way out to the moon to kind of solve for that. But for the time being, we'll just worry about these 3,147 meters per second that we need to burn to make that happen. 1,400 left in our RL-10 stage, and then 1,383 on our assist tank, although we'll be getting a little, I don't know, I guess less than that, seeing as how the AJ10 fuel and the Astris fuel ratios are completely different. We'll start by making sure that we empty out the thruster fuel from the RL10. It's not a whole lot, but every little bit helps. We will be using some thrusters to do some assisting here and there. But basically, when we separate the stage, we're going to light the AJ10 and then switch the Lunar Uber into high thrust mode, which uses only 4 of its 5 Astris 2 engines to help push us along, I guess. And then when the external tank is dry, the AJ10 will cut out because it's out of fuel, and then we will light the 5th Astris 2 engine to really get us scooting along. We only have some of the fuel tanks, and there's a failure of the RL-10 right before cutoff. And stage sep, Lunar Uber in high thrust mode. Again, 4 Astris engines, 2 firing. Right. We only have some of the fuel tanks on the Lunar Uber 2 unlocked. Nominally, it has right around 5 kilometers per second. It should be good for a solid trip down and up without refueling. A benefit of its quality engineering, thanks to the good people over at Wookheed. And maybe a little bit due to it only takes 4 crew. I'm really looking forward to the much better balancing, the care that has been placed into making sure this thing is easy for a knucklehead like me to dock to stuff. Always a good time. Anyway, I did a fairly decent job of estimating our node burn times. We're getting ready to cross the node actual now with about 4 minutes left of runtime. Of course, that will shift as we jettison our external fuel tank. But you really start to notice the discrepancy between the two fuel mixtures for the 2 different engines being used. Since we're pumping so much fuel, we're going to run out of aerosine way before we run out of nitrogen tetroxide. Just making sure that our tanks that are unlocked are fully topped off. We'll ditch the stage away, light our number 5 or our number 1 engine. And we don't really need as much thrust, as we're actually going to run a little early on our runtime. Not the worst problem in the world to have, but still plenty left in the tanks to do our capture around the moon and perform our orbital rendezvous, thanks to all this excess delta V built into this thing. But now it's a very careful time to watch that ascending orbital path. We're going to switch down to a single engine as we make our approach to the moon. Yeah, just a little bit early. And then we will correct this in on RCS. Again, KSP being absolutely magical and refusing to decide if we actually have this encounter or not. Now I am going to make a little bit of a mid-course correction and try to adjust that angle in so that at least our periapsis at the moon will be right around an ascending or descending node, so that when we capture an orbit, as highly elliptical as it may be, it will give us a solid chance to adjust our inclination at the highest point in our orbit. This is touching up that node right now, and while it does increase our overall relative inclination, I think it will actually save us a whole lot of delta V in the long run by making sure that we are at a very high altitude when we go to make that inclination adjustment, where it is absolutely the most efficient. But trying to plot a node when KSP can't decide if that encounter is actually a thing or not is a little difficult. 7.5 meters per second on that inclination change. We'll just be able to take care of that right on the back of RCS. I will try to do it from map view, as KSP still can't figure out if this is actually a thing or not. That's just super frustrating. But that looks almost good enough. A little wiggling on the controls, seeing if we can't just optimize it a little bit, but I think we'll be alright. And then, yeah, sure enough, our descending node is right there at apoapsis, so we will set the alarm plus 10 minutes for the SOI change, and before switching over to Kawaii Potato. Alright, well, here we are at Potato Station. We have already moved all the crew into our lunar transit vehicle, now dubbed the Nemo, or just Nemo for short, thanks in no part to its fantastic paint job. I love this little thing. It is absolutely adorable. Anyway, it is time for our crew of 4 to make their journey on over to the moon into Tremonia Research Station. Now that they have a vehicle that can take them down to Rosalina Station on the surface, it's actually time for them to get this mission underway. They've been on standby for entirely too long. Just one last quick check to make sure that our life support is good and that we are controlling from the cockpit, so that our orientation and controls are all where they should be. I don't want to be in butt docking mode. And activate engine. Activate engine, very good. What is this? Okay. I don't know what it's going to try to separate there, but that is... well, we'll have to figure that one out later. Alright, let's plot for the moon. Oh, good. Looks like we're right about where we need to be. And that's the path of our friendly neighborhood asteroid and stuff. No, that's the path of the craft we just launched. Oh yeah, I turned off a bunch of accessory stuff, satellites and whatnot. So that should... nope, okay, set as target, maybe? Alright, well, let's shift this around a little bit, maybe? Can we get a hold of it? Yep, there's an encounter. Green line shifted quite dramatically. Alright, focus view. And that's the wrong side. So let's scroll the mouse wheel round and round. Where is... there she is. Set as target. Yeah, minus 167 degree. That's not gonna fly. So we'll just come on, KSP. What are you doing? Oh, yeah, that's that. Oh boy, I guess I've been running the game too long. It's starting to get all wonky on me. So yeah, looks like we'll have to make another mid-course here, although that almost intercept was kind of tempting. Yeah, I don't know if we'll actually be able to... yeah, that's a lot further apart than we think it is. Yeah. We'll make a mid-course to adjust for all of that. Shouldn't be a huge ordeal. 3127 meters per second. We should probably angle ourselves in and go ahead and pull away from the station here and unlock some fuel tanks. Those two alone give us 3,800 meters per second. We've still got all of the pontoons also, plus whatever fuel is in the crew areas. Have the computer hold the node, or I guess actually that's Alice holding the node. Skilled pilot that she is. Alright, oh, we are 6 minutes And it says our estimated runtime is 21 minutes? Really? Alright, well, solar panels out. Might as well not run the batteries dry while we're trying to do any of this. And get our comms open. Yeah, well. Light them up. Whoa. Okay. Maybe these pontoons are throwing us off a bit more than I thought they would. Before it starts to overcompensate. Oh yeah, no, that's a nosedive. Okay. Not liking this entirely too much. Yeah, let's I guess we're gonna have to try to get these pontoons drained as quickly as possible. See if we can increase our general stability that way. So we're gonna open up these tanks and just try to drain them into the center, I guess, as quickly as we can. Maybe that'll help us out a bit. Yeah, no, those thrusters are not doing nearly enough to keep us stable. What am I doing wrong here? Yeah, rear tank's open also, so we can drain fuel into that. No. Alright, well, I guess we need to get these pontoons emptied out, so we might as well use the RCS to help us, or just try to get through as much of this as we can before the swinging starts. Or something, really, because otherwise this node is going to be a completely lost cause. So, yeah, I don't think we've really gotten through much of it. Just try to light the engines. Oh, wow, that eliminated that swing very, very quickly. Alright, that fuel is locked. That fuel is locked. Try to get rid of what we can. Nope. Alright. Well, these are just the end caps, aren't they? Well, we'll get out what we can. Yeah, the bulk of these pontoons are completely full still. We can try to just pulse fire through what we can. No. You know what? Let's do this old school. If it gets us through. So pontoon should be set to drain first, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. But if we can just get them emptied out, we should enjoy a monicum of stability on the other end of this. Oh, vapor. Alright. So, there we go. Light them up. Will it hold? Yeah, looks good. Thrusters are definitely trying to compensate a little bit for some of this rotation, but more or less we are on the node. Well, alright. I know it's not being used as intended, but I will take it. It's gonna at least get some of this done. We're 2 minutes from the node. It says our burn time is 27 minutes. So we'll probably run a little bit past the node and then maybe replot. Maybe we'll just we'll see how this goes. But I wonder if 2 AJ10s might be a little too anemic for this particular setup. But yeah, never fails to fall back on old tricks. Just a little weird. I can't help but wonder what the hell I'm doing wrong here, or if there's something I've overlooked. Yeah, no, don't worry, that was me playing with cameras. I was just going to, while we're here, and I'm just holding a key. Now, this is not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in the cockpit view. Come on, camera change. Yeah, that's not disorienting at all. Okay, never mind. Let's just get through this burn, shall we? We'll jump here into the speddy uppy bits for just a second, but in a post-episode investigation, the cause of failure has been determined, and I will now present you this press release from Wookheed Industries explaining the root cause of this particularly interesting issue.
The Vehicle Dynamics Engineering Department from Wookheed requested a review of the recorded flight data. After an extensive review, Wookheed engineers can confirm the stability issues were due solely to pilot error. An incorrect command sequence prior to engine ignition caused the engines to operate in failsafe mode with the gimbals locked, falling back on RCS for orientation and steering.
Yes, once again, I activated the engines through the right-click menu and not through staging, causing their gimbals to remain locked and unable to compensate for the offset or the off-center mass of poor little Nemo here, resulting in what I can only imagine was kind of an uncomfortable experience for the crew. Although their rotation wasn't really all that fast, it just looks rather jarring here in the sped up footage. But yeah, so this is entirely on me. The craft itself, I am assured, performs flawlessly. I have no doubts in my mind that it does. I'm just too dumb to operate it. I will blame sleep deprivation for my obvious sense of failures, but we're about 5 minutes past the node, which means we're going to be running late on this burn, so we will cancel the node now that we've got those pontoons drained. We should be enjoying a lot more stability, and we will just replot our node for the moon, getting it, roughly right. But again, we're going to try to tune it so that we can get that periapsis somewhere near an ascending or descending node. We'll do our best to drain the last little bit of fuel from the pontoons, double check on our life support, 50 days, make sure it's renamed appropriately and not just a facet of Kawaii Potato Station, before we take ourselves a lap, just to make sure that we can hit this node quite accurately. We're about 8 minutes out. We're going to let that run a little further down. 2100 meters per second left to go on this burn. It says it will take 14 minutes to run through. I'm a little skeptical on that, as the nav ball readings have never been known to be particularly accurate. Engine light, a little bit of nudge from the thrusters, and the RCS is more than powerful to handle what's left of our offset center balance, even without engine gimbals, which is fantastic. So the rest of this burn just kind of becomes and straight on until morning. Just a couple of more minutes before we'll switch it into time warp view to make sure that we're going to be able to maintain this heading as perfectly as possible, and hopefully get this burn worked through just as efficiently as we can, to make sure that we have a solid approach on the Tremonia Station. We do have some disposable Delta V, but I guess I'd rather not push the limits of the platform right on its maiden voyage out, especially when we have such a solidly experienced crew. Bob and Deanna, last name I'm not going to pronounce, and pilot Alice Campbell on their way to a good solid, at least a year-long deployment on the surface of the moon. Hopefully we'll clean out what research data we have left there, and then maybe mount an expedition to a further biome to see what we can accomplish. That's a ways off in the future, I should say, and we won't start to speculate on the length of their mission just yet. But really, we'd just like to prove that systems can work, and cockpit view here is a little more than off, but at least it's accurately reflecting there's two people in it. And there's our docking window, independent docking controls. That's interesting. I doubt I'll ever use them, but yeah, you can see the little rear window right there at the back of the cockpit. Just nice to know they're there, I suppose. So, through the aid of physics time warp, we'll go ahead and speed through this last little bit of this burn, coming up on the last 300 or so meters per second, which is the kind of critical point. So we'll jump out here to the map view and just watch our telemetry make its way on out to the moon, and hopefully get us on the correct side here. Yep, and we'll just finish this off with RCS and get it as close as we can. And of course we'll have to plot a mid-course correction, but of course KSP will not let me plot a maneuver. So let's give the crew a solid view, just make sure our fuel tanks on the pontoons are empty, and then centralize the rest of our fuel and see what we're looking at for Delta V. Looks like 2,500 or so meters per second. I wanted to bring up a maneuver node editor, which won't let me place a maneuver node, but we'll place one inside Moon's SOI because it'll let me do that at least, and then make the necessary adjustments through the standard controls. Again, we just want to line up our periapsis with the ascending or descending node so that we can get the most out of our plane change maneuver that will take place once we are in lunar orbit. So a quick 7.5 or so meter per second correction, and that puts us right just about where we need it to be. A little touch-ups here or there, and then there it is. Of course, KSP can't decide if we actually have the encounter or not, but that's really kind of here or there. So we'll set an alarm, make sure we have both Nemo 1 and our lunar Uber all set up and ready to go. We'll get to their rendezvous and docking in the next episode, but so here's some eye candy. Absolutely spectacular view. I hope they're enjoying the trip now that they're done being spin dried. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.
Cause the engines to operate in failsafe mode with the gimbals. I can't think gimbals. I'm laughing so hard it goes red. Okay. I'm gonna do the outtakes now. Gimbals. I can't say that word.